I don't know if there's a better theme song in the world. I think it's the best one in the world. Doug did that. Doug did that. Hey everybody, welcome to Denver After Dark, the coolest show on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. called Denver After Dark ever made. Ever. So as people are coming on, this is pretty great. We got hey. Oh gosh, I got the wrong chat up. Doug's gonna kill me. I got the public chat up. Let me go to the private chat so Doug can yell at me as we're going through this. It's good to see everybody tonight. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on in the world. There's not a lot of hope going on. It's been pretty quiet because I think Trump's been sequestered for 6 to 7 days. My gosh, guys, listen. If you hit the 7,000 Big Macs in a lifetime eaten, that usually means you have an issue, right? So he's at Mark, what's up, Cletus? So yeah, everything's, oh my God. I do too, Peggy. The theme song's amazing. And by the way, I know you guys see us growing. We got more and more people jumping on because we're actually going to Substack right now too, which really doesn't show up in the views. Which is pretty cool. I know that thing's going off. And then we got YouTube, Mighty Peculiar and Denver After Dark. Next week, Doug and I are going to try TikTok. I got a TikTok account. I know that's sort of crazy, a Denver After Dark TikTok account. You should spread the word so I get, like 5 subscribers there. And then also, I think also we're going to try Instagram and also Twitter, X. I'm going to pay for that extra premium thing just so I can talk to everybody on X. I don't want to. Trust me, you guys know how I feel about this. I want this just to be, an incredible platform where all of us can actually palaver together. But I think if I get out there on X, it seems like my account, I got rid of the 120, 130,000 follower account because I was just sick of it. But now this other one's starting to grow pretty quickly too. So spread the word if you can. You guys know me and Doug pretty much do this for free. We pay for everything ourselves. So I really am excited that we can have such incredible quality on this because I'm a producer. I should probably pay $250,000 a year, and he's pretty much doing it for free. Hello, Mama Bird. So we got all that going on. So now that we got people going on, it's going more and more will come on. I got a couple stories, crazy stories. Not that crazy, but they're a little crazy. And there's actually a theme to them. And I know I always do this, but I want to talk about a brutal thing, a traumatic thing that happened in the year 2000, maybe 2001. Um, you know, it's pretty crazy. I don't know. Everybody here, a lot of people here probably have kids, or you were a kid. I guess you'd have to be a kid at one time. That would be pretty weird if you just were plopped out as a 23-year-old. But so all of us were kids, or we've had kids. So 2000, 2001, my wife and I, is it the movie The Island with Ewan McGregor? Was it Scarlett Johansson with Ewan McGregor? I think it's called The Island. There are clones on this island that have to escape. And Steve Buscemi's in it. And at one point, they escape, right? And he has to tell them the awful news that they're actually just clones to be harvested. And if you guys remember this, when he's sitting on the couch when they escape, I think they go through the gas station, they get to Buscemi's house. And then he has to have this talk with him about reality. Well, it just so happened, my wife and I had our 8-year-old daughter with us watching this movie on the couch. It's in Shrewsbury, Pennsylvania. And we're watching this movie. And Steve Buscemi goes, my God, it's like telling a kid that Santa Claus doesn't exist. So my daughter is sitting between me and my wife, and she's like, what? And she starts to cry. Like, what do you, and I'm like, oh no, look what Ewan McGregor has done to my daughter. So anyway, I look at my 8-year-old. I'm like, honey, why are you crying? She goes, does Santa Claus not exist? I'm a good dad. I'm an empathetic dad. But if you guys all know, in this culture of ours, we lie to our kids about fantasy beings, right? About Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, which is nightmare fuel, as all you guys know. So I look at her, I said, honey, baby, it's okay. It's just like the Tooth Fairy. Doesn't exist either. And she starts wailing, like calling me a liar at 8 years old. You've been lying to me. You lied to me. The Tooth Fairy too? It's not real. Oh, let me tell you. So, second story. You guys are like, oh my God, how is he okay, what the hell, Dad, right? You're going now from traumatizing your daughter watching The Island with you and McGregor about Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy. You're not going to tell us the issue here, right? You're just going to go right in the second story, and then we got to figure out the theme. So I was a two-time state powerlifting champion, teenager. I started about 17. I won my first bench pressing competition, you know, and was pretty cool. So I was 17, went into this adult only bench pressing competition, not adult only club, but this adult only bench pressing competition. And I go in there and I smoke like 15 or 20 people. And actually, my first bench pressing competition was in Standardsville, Virginia, right? So this is 1987. So I go in there and I win, right? And I remember I'm like, oh my gosh, that's pretty cool, right? I beat a bunch of men, but they hated my guts, right? They were, before I got in there, they all looked a lot bigger than me. I was just a pretty good technical lifter, and I just ended up winning. So then I started really lifting weights, right? By 18 and 19, I won back-to-back Virginia State championships as a teenager, and won a joint as an adult. So I was getting very, very good, at this powerlifting thing. I was always pretty strong. Well, anyhow, between 18 and 19 is where I really found my strength. But weirdly, there was all these things happening, right? I was always sort of in my peer group. I was the number one lifter, but suddenly I come in a couple days, right? And, after a few months, and I'm watching some of my buddies and they're getting a lot stronger. And I'm like, that is really weird. I'm going to have to train harder. So I kept training harder and harder and harder. I started to break down a little bit, have some injuries because it seemed like they were really catching up to me. Like, for instance, I was a really good squatter, right? I could squat big weight. I usually would have a 100 to 120-pound lead before I went into the bench and the deadlift. I was a great squatter. I was a pretty damn good bench presser, and I was a middling deadlifter, right? So, a typical meet for me when I was at my primes, like a 700 squat, about a 465 bench. But then I'd have to roll in, I was at between 198 and 220, but I had to roll into the deadlift. And man, I was struggling at the 550. If I could get 550 to 570, I'm just holding off everybody to win, right? So anyway, I have about three friends who are always behind me a good bit. And suddenly I find they're catching me. And I'm like, my gosh, maybe it's just because I'm only 5'7". Maybe I'm not training right. So I'm doing different proteins. I'm doing amino acids. I'm drinking lots of water. I'm in the gym more and more. I'm really pounded it. This is in the late 80s. Right. So anyhow, I'm like, what is happening here? A buddy of mine beat me in best pound for pound, even though I won my weight class in a meet, but he had never been able to do that before. Then another buddy of mine who sucked at squatting is catching me. I remember my best set of squats before Eastern Nationals in '89. I think I did 600 for 6 in a half suit, if anybody's familiar with powerlifting. But I was a completely natural lifter. But guys, I mean, I was pretty naive, I guess. Anyhow, I'm thinking this doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. So one day I go into the gym, and there's my buddy with this like this brown open box, and he opens a box and he has hypodermics, right, with different types of stuff in there. And what I found out, he goes, "Den, man, I'm sick of injecting myself. Would you inject me?" So here I am between my 18th and 19th year, and one of my best friends has asked me to inject him with sustanon. And I was just like, dude, what the hell's going on? What are you doing? He goes, well, I've been doing this for 6 months to 8 months. And, I'm like, holy shit. Right. And then I find out like literally my immediate peer group and everybody around me had been doing steroids without telling me. Right. So here I am, just lifting. And I guess what I want to tell you guys, right, is I had this awful sort of breakdown, this injury. I was training for Eastern Nationals and trying to keep up. And this is right before I found out about all the steroid use. I had just done a set of 355 for 6, right? I was going to try to, just turned 19. And, so I really wanted that 420 to 430 bench, right, as a teenager, going into Eastern National competition. And Eastern Nationals, and I would have qualified for literally the junior nationals, which is like in the late 80s, early 90s. That was like the shit if you were a power lifter. But I find out that, they've been stacking sustanon, Anadrol 50, right? D-ball. And I remember, it's weird. when you're younger, you can't explain something, and then the truth comes at you facts-based so hard, right? That the whole time that you were training, right? These guys were, but I remember when I did my 355 for six set, I'd never felt better in my life. Like, I'm going to win Eastern Nationals. And I knew it was going to be a tough fight, even against the people in my gym. And so I went to a down set of 315, and on the fourth set of pauses, and I don't know if you guys have ever done pauses, boom, boom. I come up, bam, my whole left shoulder just gives way. Beginning of multiple injuries over the next 10 to 12 years. I had actually, by the age of 34, I had my last big lifts. Stayed fairly strong through 40. Now you can see not quite what I used to be, but I'm back, in the gym doing what I can. But I thought about these two stories, right? And, realization and brutality of facts. And I know that it bothered me all day today because what I'm about to go through today with everybody is that my daughter at 8 years old, I had to be the unfortunate individual, right? To not only tell her that Santa Claus wasn't real, but the Tooth Fairy also, which meant that the whole menagerie of fantastical beings poofed out of existence for my daughter at 8. And by the way, the lying of those fantastical beings for 8 years. And I want you guys to think about this as I talk about some of this today. And then to realize, that everything I'd been doing in all my training, thinking that maybe I was deficient somehow or I wasn't able to keep up with my fellow lifters. When it came back, everybody around me was sort of hiding this from me. And it's the facts of the matter is that you think there's some complex set of circumstances when usually it's Occam's razor. And the reason their gains were so incredible, and I still love some of them today, the reason their gains were so incredible is because they were on steroids. There's a brutality in facts that I've seemed to have drawn this unfortunate straw of doing it. And I, as I go over today, when I talk about radioactive shrimp, radioactive shrimp, and we're going to talk about a J6er today that went after Sergeant Gonell, and we're going to talk about QAnon raising its head. At what point, all of you listening, do you utilize the brutality of facts against those who seem to not be able to realize it? And at what point are you willing to look at the facts of a situation and say, it just is this? And I think that's what I've been struggling with this week. It just is this. Now, a lot of people say it is what it is, but it just is this. And for my daughter, Lily, who even today, she's 27, 28 now, she goes, that was one of the ultimate moments of her life, right? Where she still has issues with me lying to her as a child. And if you think of it, like, yeah, you should, my God, I was even at that point, right? I was still, thought of myself as a marginal Christian, maybe. I was gone by then. And so the other thing too, though, is when I was thinking about my friends and those around me, is that there was a whole nother ecosystem that I was trying to try to comprehend when everybody around me was living in this very simple ecosystem that seemed to be there's complexities, right? Because all of them were growing using their different training regimens. But what it came down to, simply put, was that they were on steroids. And by the way, as a lot of you guys, I was raised Mormon. And even though even at 19, I was sort of sliding out, I still didn't have my first drink of alcohol till I was 31. I always thought of, that maybe, no, definitely me when I got hurt. That was a look on my face when I was screaming on the bench when my shoulder went. Trust me. Had to go to the freaking emergency room, and they're like, my God, you on steroids? First question they asked me, guys. Like, motherfucker. So there you go. So let's talk about radioactive shrimp. So there's this big recall going on with shrimp, right? Where they said that shrimp had been irradiated with cesium. And I'm looking at this and I'm just sort of like, that's weird. And I'm like reading everything like, well, you always irradiate, shrimp, but you also like irradiate oysters and things like that. And And I know, guys, I have this stupid knowledge. Like I have this stupid knowledge of stuff, right? And I'm like, because the first thing I thought of was, big deal. A little bit of nukes on the shrimp. You know what I mean? That's good. I've always wanted to grow a vestigial tail. I've always wanted to shake one, right, when I'm running through the woods. So there we go. We already have radioactive shrimp pictures that actually that was live, of the radioactive shrimp swimming, I think, that Doug just found. So anyhow, I was reading it and I'm like, this is really odd, because I'm looking at the actual levels. Like, does that meet the FDA levels? That's really what's called becquerels or whatever. I'm like, what's going on, right? And we're in trade wars too simultaneously. And I start seeing all these posts for people going, don't eat foreign shrimp. It's always radiated. Eat American Gulf shrimp. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? There's far right influencers like jumping onto this irradiated shrimp story, like, I don't know, like Trump and Stormy Daniels, right? It's just jumping on it, just, so I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So I start looking at some of the actual scientific facts of this. I'm wondering, I'm like, why are they? I'm still not quite sure, guys, right? When you're talking about Occam's razor and you're talking about what's real, what's not real, you have an administration that up until now have accused everybody of these massive conspiracy theories, deep state, globalists, and you see them, firing people if they get the wrong data or wrong statistics. And I wanted to look up the guy who's the FDA director, and as soon as I saw his name, Martin Macri, I'm like, holy crap, that's the weird guy. Fucking one of RFK Jr.'s good buds. That's the lead of the FDA. Now, past performance is also indicative of future performance. So here's the brutality of what I'm thinking here. Occam's razor. As we're in these trade wars with the other 192 countries or so in the world, there's this weird thing going on where the very thing that I've tried to trust in government data and facts, especially when you're talking about the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, you're talking about the GAO, I had to work with the GAO, the Congressional Research Service, all those things you guys know I have experience with. Very professional people, right? They have to look at the data. If the data is wrong down the road, they always got to readjust it. You always see that. With this administration, the very thing they've been accusing people of, I'm starting to get this feeling, guys, I'm being a little bit facetious here, but I'm starting to get this feeling, guys, that maybe they're not being honest. And when you look at the actual scientific and the data behind it, you have a group in the FDA not actually following the scientific guidelines of what it looks like to have too much radiation in your shrimp. And doesn't it seem that maybe this old Asian shrimp thing might be sort of some kind of trade negotiation or using the hammer or some kind of arbitrary FDA recall based on the fact that all of it was Indonesian shrimp? And by the way, you guys can look at some of the actual scientific data. I want you guys to look at it, not this do your own research shite, but do your own sourcing. There's a big difference between those two. Do your own sourcing. I don't have the final answer yet, but when I was looking at what the far right influencers were doing with coordinated messaging, you guys, I'm telling you, past performance is indicative of future performance. A lot of things are happening, I think, when you have loyalists in charge. If you already have somebody who believes that COVID's fake and J6 was a stolen election and believes that germs don't exist and all that kind of stuff, right? Maybe, just maybe, they're not being honest with you. Maybe it's not that complex. Maybe it's not the ecosystem where I thought that everybody's different routines must have been better than mine when it was actually they were just simply taking steroids. There's a brutality in looking at how people act. And when you're looking at intelligence analysis, a lot of times what you do is you go and look what people do in the past and you take it into the future and you look at it. So now we have this radioactive shrimp weirdness going on out there. And why would I bring that up if I don't know the answer 100%? Because I always like to look at the thought patterns, especially when you're looking at radioactive shrimp. But I'm sorry to tell you guys that you guys have been eating radioactive shite for a long time. So what? Here's the thing, man. I'm 55, right? If we were living in the 18th century, I'd already have leprosy and goiters, right? And probably things falling off my body and probably a host of venereal diseases, right? Let's be honest, right? I'd have been a philanderer in the 1700s, especially in France. I'd been everywhere, right? So let's think about this. So what I'm telling everybody here is when you're looking at this stuff that's happening, that's like this hair on fire, like, oh my God. And you're like, I wonder how many people have gotten sick from the radioactive shrimp. Oh, let me go look at, why is it 0? So then you start saying, well, that's weird. This coordinated messaging across multiple far right channels on how awful Asian shrimp is. sewer shrimp, all that stuff. And immediately every hackle on the back of my, because I'm like, when I see coordinated far right messaging and unscientific decision making, I start to get a little bit dubious. Brutality of facts, and also looking at things in a way that's unemotional, right? How do you do that? How do you go through this when things are so emotional, especially with the evil that's in the world? And you guys know, and ad nauseum, that I was the J6 senior technical advisor. And so when I saw that this guy, so I know Sergeant Gannell, met him many times. As you guys know, I know Mike Fanone and Harry Dunn. I know all these guys. Literally just saw Mike Fanone at the Dropkick Murphys concert just a week, 2 weeks ago. So we hung out, at the Dropkick Murphys concert. So I see that Sergeant Gannell talks about this whole Ashley Babbitt thing. Now, you guys know about, Ashley, the girl that was shot at J6. And you guys know I had to look into all that. And this is going to be very difficult for me as a former Air Force guy as I go through this very quickly. She got honors by the United States Air Force, which I think is a massive mistake. Awful, right? There's no way that somebody who tried to overturn the will of the people, a free and fair election, should be getting honors from the United States Air Force. But it shows us the sickness, right, that we have right now in our government. So Ashley goes through the window. She gets shot. She gets killed because she was actually trying. Now, I know exactly where she was going, right? So when you're going to the speaker's hallway, that's actually the entrance. So there's this hallway behind the floor, right? You guys, a lot of times you see the other side, right? You see the other side that people come in. Well, the back side, if you're looking at, where they speak on the dais, right? There's doors on each side, right? Where the actual members come in from the speaker's hallway if we want to come in that way. That's only for members of Congress. Then you have the balcony out there, on and on. By the way, one day I should just get everybody on the show and just take you on a tour. Since I have my congressional pen, I can still go there and show everybody lifetime privileges. Wouldn't that be fun with everybody here? You could say hi to Marjorie Taylor Greene. So I guess you guys would love that. So anyhow, Ashley Babbitt gets full honors. Gannell gets on Twitter, says, or X, shitter, gets on X and says, hey, she doesn't deserve honors. And then a guy named, I think, Ryan Nichols gets on, who I knew pretty well. I believe that's his name. Gets on and said, we should have gone at you harder. Doug, I don't know if you have that to pop up, that tweet. I want you guys to just take a look at that. Look at Ryan Nichols Sr. at Real Ryan Nichols. I think everybody should go to Twitter if you have X. Help Staff Sergeant Gannell out there. But I just want to say something really quickly and very specifically that Ryan Nichols Sr. is a piece of shit. How about that? So, and if you guys go look and Google his name, you'll know who we're talking about. I mean, it's these scumbags out there who are going after law enforcement, who are trying to protect the Capitol. And even when you see it, and Doug, could you just pop it up one more time? Because I just want to break down what he said there. When he said, so are you, he goes, she was a traitor then, is a traitor now, and she will always be in the future, talking about Ashley Babbitt. Ryan Nichols Sr. says, so are you. We should have went harder on you that day. I just want you guys to read that. Take 5 seconds and just let that sink in. Thank you, Doug. So if you go down and look at that post a little bit more, you'll see that he talks about that everybody deserved it because pretty much it was a deep state coup. If you look at the thread, that it was orchestrated by the federal government, which is one of the conspiracy theories that people with mental illness, smooth brains, or glue sniffers actually have at some time. The reason I wanted to show everybody that is because this is where it helps, where people like you, right, that are active, that are really worried about America, need to go on there and give him the brutality of facts. It's time. The brutality of facts. Drag him digitally. He doesn't care, right? He's so stupid. If he looks up in a rainstorm, he's probably going to drown. And he's not going to really care that you guys are doing this. But I think what you need to do is go show your colors, especially for Sergeant Gannell. I think it's okay to do that. If somebody's that brazen where they think that they should have hurt law enforcement because they're so stupid, they're so mentally challenged, they have so much credulity and belief systems that don't make sense. It's almost like 8-year-olds that believe in the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus. And nobody showed him the island. And I think he still would believe it today Because I will tell you guys right now, this is a brutal statement, the brutality of facts. If the people that you believe in, or you or that person yourself, thinks you're getting a direct beam of prophecy from a supernatural being, you're probably not capable of knowing the difference between fantasy and fact. And I'm having a tough time here. I'm having a tough time. Because if you look at biblical revelation, you look at false prophets and antichrist, if these guys really believed it, if they believe this menu of options for the antichrist, right? It's like McAntichrist, right? I'll have um I'll have some demons and can I get some fries with that? But if you look at this, right? And you look at what's going on, and you look at what's going on, right? You're like, this guy still believes in fairies, demons, interdimensional beings, probably was bought into the alien abductions, don't think germs exist, like RFK Jr., right? Or believes that mRNA, right, is somehow changing us, right? Actually bringing out our real reptilian forms. And this guy is going after a real guy, right? The brutality of facts. He needed somebody. He needed you and McGregor and Scarlett Johansson to learn him up on the fact is the idiots that tell you this are not only stupid, right, but they're also playing you. So you're just sort of an ignorant mark in this far right ecosystem that's mining you for votes and money. My God, what a rant that was. Did we tape that, Doug? And could we play that back at some point? But anyway, so I would love for you guys to go out there, check out that tweet thread, go there and go ahead and wreak some havoc. Swing that million-pound shit hammer of facts at everybody you could see. So we've gone from radioactive shrimp to J6. And the reason I'm rolling through this pretty quickly is that I do want to answer some questions, but this QAnon stuff has reared its ugly head, which is exactly what this guy who went after Gunnell. And again, what could Brian Nichols, right? This guy that went after Gunnell, exactly what he believed was QAnon, but something disturbed me so badly. As you guys remember, probably don't, but I'll bring it up again. October 2020, and we had worked on it since August. Tom Malinowski and I from New Jersey did a joint resolution condemning QAnon thoughts and activities, especially with the violence they were espousing on social media, even at that time. If you guys remember back to 2020, it goes back as far as 2019. Right, Q was really gaining steam. Now, if you're looking at where Q really was, it was 6 months pretty much after Comet Pizza. You guys know Pizzagate. We've been over that. So you guys can see this progression. Anyhow, Tom Malinowski do a resolution on the floor. In October, I warn about QAnon. December, in my farewell speech, I say QAnon could cause violence. You guys can go see this on YouTube, right? It's very famous. I think it has 100 views. Anyway, so anyway, you guys need to look at it. Everybody should have probably watched it. It did get thousands. I did get some news. So then I see this. If there's anything that I detest more, it's conspiracy theorists, but especially violent conspiracy theorists. You can be benign, right? If you believe that fairies, right, come and clean your house, and that's really your belief system, and if somebody says, hey, bud, I don't think fairies clean your house, and you're just like, I know they do. I know they clean my house. Let's go get some coffee. That's cool. You can have benign. I don't even know. Is that how somebody would act if you called out their fairy cleaners? I don't know. But here's the thing is that's benign. They're not trying to hurt anybody. But what I do hate is I hate violent conspiracy theorists who act on fantasy in a way that they think's true through the dehumanization of others. And a lot of that too comes from Q. Q is just a sticky bomb of conspiracy theories. Really believed by the worst of us, the dumbest of us, right? The most idiotic of us, right? The people who would want to hurt others based on dehumanizing others. If you look at the Storm, WWG1, WGA, hashtag Save Our Children, you guys know I know this stuff cold. We can go into that another thing if we want to have a whole nother QAnon show. But here's what I'm getting to. Donald Trump puts out this frickin' truth post, and I want to show you guys really quick, Doug, if you could pop that up. Anybody see this? Just take a look at that. But what I really want you to take a look at, the world will soon understand nothing can stop what is coming. That's the storm. The storm, by the way, and don't take this. Yep. So here we go. Look at that. You guys know what that means? I don't know if you guys want to put it in comments for your friends. You see that little plus? It looks like a cross there. Q plus, Q cross there. That means he is Q. And he posted that. Think about that again. everything that happened on January 6th, everything like that. Think about what happens when you see something like that. This is, and you see that it looks like a cross, right? And I don't know if you could put that up really quick, Doug, one more time for everybody. When you actually do see that, that's the thing that you need to be worried about right there, is that this guy is calling out to everybody, right, who is in this belief system, which are still in the tens of millions, by the way. It's so funny. I had had somebody tell me, like, well, Denver, it said only 17% of Republicans, it was something like this, or maybe 18 or 19% believe in Q. I said, yeah, do you see that second line? 43% were like, yeah, maybe. I said, brother, you're getting up over 60%. What are you talking about? That's freak show territory. That's millions of cultists out there, millions that believe this nonsense. And if you look at J6, the stolen election, that's Q adjacent. That's a cascading effect of idiocy, right? And that came directly from Q influencers. If you're looking at 4chan and the bubble up, and if you look at the Mark Meadows text, which I did, man, that stuff started right when he lost. This stuff, it was ready because, as you guys know, Stop the Steal actually started with Roger Stone back in 2016 when they were gearing up if he lost to Hillary. They were going to do the same thing. This was years in the making, just like what you're seeing now with the disruption of our institution, years in the making, right? We have Steve Bannon, the avowed Leninist, the thought leader, running all of it. So when you're looking at this Q stuff, I said people before, QAnon would rear its head again, and people are like, Denver, you're full of shit. No way QAnon's going to come back. There's no way. Like, QAnon is now GOP, right? There's no difference, right? That is the baseline, is sort of this cult weird behavior that really is about dehumanizing, fake conspiracies, hyperbole, right? Creating hate, right? That's really what you do. And now that you're seeing far right influencers talking about the end of tolerance, which is why I think when you see something with him like this, with the Q plus sign there, that he's the leader of Q, and you're seeing this, look at the coordinated message about tolerance and the end of tolerance that you're seeing out there on far right channels. And now you're like, what are they talking about? So if they're not tolerant anymore, are they going into violence? Think about the brutality of facts. The brutality of facts. The brutality of data. The brutality of that past performance is indicative of future performance. There's a brutality that you're seeing, from radioactive shrimp through a J6er saying he wished they would have beat law enforcement worse, right? A guy who knows, what's going on in this guy's head, but he's actually mentally ill. Mental illness, really, in some respects, is the only way I can explain it at this point. And then when you're looking at Donald Trump retruthing, right, refantasizing QAnon stuff, you get to the point, you're like, my God, we don't think it could get worse, but it's going to get worse every day, because why is all this happening when you're looking at this flood the zone of shit happening everywhere? And you guys know, only covered a very few things, right? Just a very few. Me and Doug were talking about it earlier, and I'm like, buddy, I have 3 hours of content tonight, but I don't want to waste everybody's time on a Sunday night, man. But you guys are here, and we get more and more followers every time, more and more people watching on multiple platforms. Weaponizing mental illness, it is. But there, it's weaponization of mental illness, Tim, and I'm just watching comments pop up, but it's also the mining of mental illness for profit simultaneously, right? They're funding their own manipulation, right? It's like me and ABC and liquor. I pay these massive taxes. The biggest taxes in distilleries in the country are in Virginia for craft distillers, 34% per bottle. I pay them to audit me. They don't do anything else for me but audit me and inspect me with the other 6 regulatory agencies I got to worry about. Right now, they're mining believers, Q believers, and everybody else in the GOP to weaponize them. It is an incredible grift. One of the most incredible grifts I've seen, right? When we're looking at people, right, who, for instance, are going after, people for weird things, right, for socialism or communism, actually listening to a Leninist like Steve Bannon, and it's the brutality of facts. So here we go, guys. Here's where we're at. How do we deal with it? I've always said that we've gone from this, man, and I don't want people to misunderstand me when I say this, but we have gone from resistant politics to confrontational politics. I've said this before. We've already lost the bubble when it comes to trying to influence others that maybe Donald Trump isn't ordained by God. I mean, they voted for a sexual abuser and a felon and somebody who ran Trump University and paid off Playboy bunnies and porn stars to try to hide during the election, said some of the worst things you could ever say about women. When you look at this going down the line, they've already made their choice. It's really hard to go back. And I think that's where you're at. If they already haven't seen the light, or they do believe, even religiously, that Trump is some here to save us from demons. And as you guys are saying, right, with a lot of these congressional representatives talking about angels, interdimensional beings, and aliens all in one clump. I mean, these are the people who are actually making our laws and our legislation. So weird. Why I'm talking. I have actual former military people lighting me up on the phone right now. This Ashley Babbitt thing has people wrapped around an axle. Anyway, what a night. Sorry about the depressing story at the beginning about my daughter. I know, what an awful dad to let her know Santa Claus and Tooth Fairy wasn't there. Tooth Fairy wasn't real through a movie. What a naive youngster and teenager not to know that everybody around me was juicing while I was trying to live natural. Couldn't figure it out until I was asked to inject somebody in the ass with a needle. So don't cut that. So anyway, I'm not even going to pop onto the comments because I see there's hundreds. But if there's anybody who has a question here in the next 10, 15 minutes, I'm happy to answer anything you guys want to hit at me. Let's do it. Let's do it. Bring it. If there's anybody who has anything up there that you want to talk about, if you don't, I understand. It's Sunday night. You're probably brain dead. You're probably thinking about radioactive shrimp and Q+. You're probably looking at how, when Q started 3 to 4 months afterwards. There we go. That's from Atlantis. We need to do a show in Atlantis now. Once I see sea monkeys, I think about Atlantis, right? The mythical the mythical place of Atlantis. My God, I got too much in my brain, guys, when it comes to crazy, right? When it comes to conspiracy theories and debunking all of them. What a night. So let's see. Well, look at that. Yes, that's great. So there's been reporting. I'm going to read Tim Price's question for you guys. There's been reporting about U.S.-backed influence and destabilization campaigns in Greenland, Mexico, and Canada. Any ideas or advice on separating legitimate debate from disinformation campaigns? Well, thanks for the easy question, Tim. I really appreciate it. So here's the issue. Right now, the United States has gotten rid of the Global Engagement Center, the GEC. We pretty much defunded CISA or CISA for looking at destabilizing digital ops and foreign propaganda for our elections. We got rid of our local law enforcement, or FBI's ability in the federal space to look at foreign influence operations. So right now, when you're looking at what's going on in sourcing, you have to actually start picking, not do your own research, do your own sourcing about the information that you see coming out. Have those people lied in the past? If you have somebody who seems to always have an issue with lying in the past, break, mostly far-right MAGA specific influence that are on a coordinated messaging platform and getting paid for it, brutality of facts, don't believe them. That's disinformation. A lot of that's going to be Russia-based or bent, if you think about it, right? It's going to be, sort of mealy-mouthed on Ukraine, or Ukraine is the bad guy or the villain. A lot of stuff on election malfeasance. A lot of stuff on this transgender crime wave I've never seen that's coming out. A lot of stuff on sort of forcing hate, and by the way, watch out for the manipulative ones who try to bring you in. Well, I'd just like to have a debate. No, you can't have a debate. So here's what I want to talk about. Okay, you guys ready? Tim, everybody, are you ready? How in the hell do we have people going after Mamdani, right? Calling him a communist in New York. And by the way, I probably wouldn't vote for Mamdani, but who else am I going to vote? I mean, the worst cast of characters ever running in New York. But how in the hell can the Republican Party, even with save any type of face going after Mamdani, right, when they're actually the thought leader for the Republican Party is an avowed Leninist, Steve Bannon, who said he was a Leninist. And by the way, Mamdani would have to blush to get to the communists and the state-owned enterprise principles that the Republican Party is doing right now by actually taking the means of production. Think about that. That's what's going on right now, right? And when I'm looking at all this downstream bullshit, What you have is that when they're flooding the zone with shit, how in the heck are you going to know what the difference is when the very people who are going after people like Mamdani are actually worse? The Republican Party is much more into the isms than anybody else. And if you look at their isms, it's like they're creating this brand new Christo-fascist blend of fascism and socialism. It's like the horseshoe, but then they tie it in these weird knots, just like QAnon, the sticky bomb conspiracy theory. So what are we looking at right now? I mean, have we gone from, and I'm trying not to my head to explode right now, but what really are we as far as an ism or a democracy? I mean, have we gone from democracy to idiocracy to theocracy to pedocracy? Right? What are we doing here? What has happened? Right? So when you're looking at, are we a pedocracy? Right? I don't know. Is it pedocracy? Is it pedocracy? I don't know what to say. But everything that you're saying, the shit that's actually being spread everywhere is to cover for one thing, and that's the Epstein files, because they ran on it as a conspiracy theory that there's a bunch of Democrats in there that are actually doing it, or globalists, or independents, or turncoat rhinos like myself that somehow are getting funded by the umbrella source organization, getting injected by Bitcoin directly into my brain. Then I'm becoming like sort of some shaking automaton, right? Like, I'm a Democrat now. What the hell? Anyway, I don't have a whole lot of feelings about it. So that's why I know that there's a bunch of crazy stuff going out there. When they came after me after I officiated the same-sex wedding, really what they said, I tried to make light of it, tool of the Antichrist. They called my wife the spawn of Satan, which I was on a radio show once and said, if I was the tool of the Antichrist and she's the spawn of Satan, wouldn't we be the most powerful couple in the world? I mean, come on. Right. And when you're looking at this also, as you're going downstream from this, what was really hurtful, what was really awful is that because I officiated a same-sex wedding, and Tim's like, God dang, Denver's gone now. It's on. Right. They said that I was trying to change the sexual orientation of children. And guess what they're doing in the Virginia elections today? The same damn thing. They're trying to project that on Abby Spanberger. They make up things. Right. They make up things. They're made up out of whole cloth. It's like they lick their fingers, stick it up their rear side, and pull out a new idea of the day. And they expect everybody to know it, right? They're like, hey, guys, let me pull this out. Oh, it's chocolate. Eat it. And that's what they're feeding the masses right now. Not that I, again, have any strong feelings about this. What do you see rising from the Democratic Party to challenge MAGA and Vance in 2028? Newsom. This is the troll armies now. It's the memification of America, right? And if you're winning the meme wars, I had somebody told me before. Sorry, I love these questions, by the way. These are brilliant. If you're winning the meme wars, you're winning the elections. That really part of that came from the 4chan bubble up. Do you guys remember Kekistan, right? Do you remember? God, I'm going into crazy stuff now. But the meme wars has started in 8chan and 4chan. People like, if you win the meme wars, you win the presidency. If you win the troll wars, you win the presidency. Newsom has caught on to this. Nobody's going to be able to match him unless other people come on and start doing the same thing. And you should be two things right now. You should be horrified that this is our country. And you should be excited that somebody realized that trolling is the only way now in this bizarre ecosystem we've created in this idiocracy / pedocracy that we have now. So that's my biggest fear, is that we do have somebody who thinks they have to troll to do it. But let me tell you, if I run as a Democrat in the presidential election, I could get 1% of the vote. Just want to let you guys know. Maybe even get 2%. What's your thoughts on Epstein victims speaking publicly this Wednesday? You think it'll change anything about Trump's involvement in Epstein's sex trafficking racket? First question, that's great. Two-part question. First question, we need to honor the victims. We need to help the victims. We need to acknowledge the victims, right? That is what we need to hear from as the American people. That is exactly what we need to hear. The second part, no. I'm sorry. Guys, that ship has sailed. Have you heard the news talking about Epstein files? No. Why? Why do you think? Think about it. The brutality of facts. Why haven't you heard about the Epstein files? Just think about it just for a second. Because if the media brings up the Epstein files, they lose access. That's it. That's it. Sorry, guys. That's America. Oh, so Cletus, what will be the faux outrage if the week of the week this week? What will be the faux outrage of the week this week? Congress is coming back in. They're going to attack Massey and Ro Khanna on this Epstein victim thing. I know Tom Massey. I know them both, but I know Tom Massey pretty well. Massey's nuts, but when he's nuts on the right side, he'll just stay crazy. Just keep going. But right now, he's right. On this whole Epstein thing. The faux outrage of the week will be the continuing, and mark my words, it's going to be the continuing outrage about all the crazy libs, you frickin' crazies, and independents and rhinos, the Bill Cristols of the world, all those freak show rhinos. The big outrage is going to be, how dare us think that Trump is dead? How dare us put anything about his health? He's the president. When you saw what they did to Biden. Faux outrage of the week. They have to continue this, and they have to flood the zone. So you're going to see a bunch of tariff stuff. And they're probably going to keep revising numbers very positively in the economic side. But the outrage is going to continue on that, and the outrage on trans serial killers will continue this week. So you will see a blended shit show coming out from the GOP this week as Congress comes back in session. Why has Mike Flynn been so quiet? Peggy, that's a great question. Did anybody know this? I think Flynn was just appointed to the Board of Visitors at West Point. Mike Flynn is now making decisions at West Point. And maybe it was happened a while ago, but I was reading that this week, and I just almost literally vomited in my mouth as a former military officer and somebody that looks at Mike Flynn as a traitor to the uniform. This guy's awful. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw his religious rallies and things like that, but let me tell you this. Mike Flynn was such a huge portion of our J6 investigation. And I'm going to tell you guys something right now, and I know you're going to be like, my God, Denver's like the Forrest Gump of where he's been in politics. I just end up in these weirdest places. But I was in the deposition for Mike Flynn. I don't know if you guys knew this or not. And I was there when Liz grilled him, and he took the fifth when she was asking him questions of whether an armed uprising was okay in the United States, right? Or if we should continue having peaceful transfers of power. Think about that. So when I was sitting in that deposition, I remember just people like, can you believe this is happening? Well, yeah. Mike Flynn is one piece of wood shy of a cord, right? I mean, this guy is not there. The other issue you have, though, is just because he's mentally unstable doesn't mean that he's dumb. And that's the other thing I've been trying to explain to people. Well, they got to be stupid to believe that the J6 election was stolen. No, did you look at the machinations that they did in order to try to do these coup-like activities? So that's what I'm talking about when you're talking about Mike Flynn. And when I talk about the four horsemen of the grifterverse, right? When you're talking about Mike Flynn and you're talking about Steve Bannon and you're talking about Alex Jones and you're talking about Roger Stone, those are the four horsemen of the grifterverse. And you know who was driving them with the whip was Sidney Powell, right? You know who actually bought their chariot was Mike Lindell and Patrick Byrne. So, so when you're looking at Mike Flynn, he's part of this whole ecosystem of nuttery, right? And now he's been put in a position of power by Pete Hegseth. And the reason Flynn is quiet is I think he's waiting for Hegseth to falter. And I think Flynn is not being really crazy because I think some of the announcements you might see in the next month or two is Flynn being part of the administration. That's why he's so quiet, Peggy. But it doesn't mean he hasn't been making moves. So check it out, where Mike Flynn is now, and you'll see the moves I think they're about to make where it's possible. I don't know if it's probable yet, but it's possible that he becomes part of the DOD infrastructure as an appointee. So, guys, what a night. I mean, I could see, man, now the views are rolling. So, listen, the worst thing that you can do and the best thing that you can do to people who believe in the weirdest things is to tell them that Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy doesn't exist. But I need you guys to know, if you're going to use this million-pound shit hammer on the people around you that have lost the bubble, have lost their way, know that it doesn't going to convince them of anything. It just means that you've created an enemy. And the question you have to ask yourself is it okay to create that enemy? I would humbly submit you have to make that decision in real time. But this is where we're at. I think right now, if I'm in a public place and I have a lot of people come up to me, you guys wouldn't believe it in Virginia. I mean, everywhere I go, it's really weird. They come up to me in tears. No, I'm kidding. They don't. But they, Denver, help us. No, no, they want to know my opinions or they want to say thank you or F off. You're a traitor. I'm like, thanks, but if you don't leave this fork, I'm going to stab you in the forehead, you know? So you have all this happening right now, but it's a joke, by the way, everybody, that it's a joke. I don't stab people in the forehead with forks. I just want everybody to know that that was a joke. But I'm okay being confrontational and making enemies now. There's no way you're going to convince these people anyway. The thing that you don't want is anybody around you thinking that you're humoring any of this insanity. Donald Trump put out a big Q plus sign, and that's pretty insane. The thing about this, though, is all of this comes back to anybody who believes in aliens shouldn't be making decisions or interdimensional beings or anything like that or angels. Yeah, it's crap. So as we end so first of all, I hope everybody is getting on Spotify and downloading the best song of all time, right? Maybe a song that'll go number one. Like I think the number one song in the 80s was Sting, right? Every Breath You Take. Dollar Tree Nazis could be the number one song of 2020 to 2030. So you should be on Spotify downloading Dollar Tree Nazis. Denver Riggleman and the Scullies. Can you guys guess who the Scullies are? Yeah, Doug. So anyway, so Denver Riggleman and the Scullies, right? The other thing too is I always think that the best way to highlight insanity is through dance and through love, and to also know that anybody who believes in space aliens and space monsters are full of shit. So thank you guys for the night. And we're going to go out with a little bit of fun on Sunday night. So right now, before this happens, I think you need to stand up, shake it out a little bit. Remember when your teachers did that? Stand at your desks, shake it out. Okay. Sit back down. Okay. Little Denny. Yep. Denny, what are you doing? I was usually asleep. What is he doing? So get up, stand up, shake it out, get ready to dance. I want you guys to stretch right, left. This is Denver After Dark and dance.